What if the UK didn't collapse, but simply emptied out? Streets still standing, homes still built, yet fewer people walking them. Imagine cities that look busy online, but feel quiet in real life. By 2027, this could become normal, not because of war or disaster, but because millions quietly chose to leave, relocate, or never arrive at all. Rising costs, disappearing jobs, and fading optimism are pushing people away one decision at a time. This is not a sudden crisis. It is a slow transformation already in motion, and most people do not see it happening yet. Number 1. Mass migration of young professionals. Across the UK, a quiet but powerful shift is underway as young professionals increasingly choose to leave the country. Rising living costs, limited career growth, and stagnant wage progression are pushing skilled workers to explore opportunities abroad. Countries offering remote-first roles, better work-life balance, and lower expenses have become attractive alternatives. Research on global mobility shows that when ambition meets restriction, migration follows. Cities once fueled by youthful energy now face shrinking. Renter populations, empty shared flats, and declining nightlife economies, all signs of a deeper demographic movement. Another major driver is the normalization of remote work. Studies after the pandemic reveal that physical location no longer defines professional success. A software developer or digital marketer can earn internationally while living anywhere with stable internet. This freedom encouraged relocation to regions with lower taxes, affordable housing, and higher quality of life. As a result, talented workers no longer feel anchored to London, Manchester, or Birmingham. When thousands make this choice, simultaneously, entire neighborhoods begin to hollow out, not overnight, but steadily and visibly. The long-term impact extends beyond empty apartments. When young professionals leave, they take with them innovation, consumer spending, and future families. Universities produce graduates who contribute their skills elsewhere, weakening local economies that invested in their education. Scientific population models suggest that without sufficient inward migration or retention, workforce gaps widen rapidly. This creates a feedback loop where fewer opportunities lead to more departures. Over time, the absence of this age group reshapes cities into quieter, older, and less dynamic spaces, accelerating the risk of widespread emptiness. This trend quietly reshapes national identity, ambition, and emotional rhythm of everyday life. Number 2. Soaring cost of living. The cost of living across the UK has risen faster than wages, creating daily pressure for millions of residents. Rent, energy bills, transportation, and groceries now consume a disproportionate share of income, especially in urban areas. Economic studies show that when basic survival costs rise beyond affordability thresholds, people begin planning exits rather than futures. For many households, staying no longer feels sustainable. This financial squeeze gradually pushes residents to downsize, relocate to cheaper countries, or abandon cities altogether, leaving behind partially occupied neighborhoods and declining demand for local services. The housing market plays a central role in this shift. Research highlights a widening gap between average salaries and property prices, making long-term settlement unrealistic for younger adults. Shared housing extends into later adulthood, savings stagnate, and home ownership becomes symbolic rather than achievable. When people feel locked out of stability, mobility becomes the logical response. International relocation, once rare, is now a calculated decision driven by spreadsheets, not sentiment, and the result is fewer permanent residents anchoring communities. Beyond finances, constant economic stress reshapes behavior. Sociological studies link prolonged financial insecurity to lower community engagement, delayed family formation, and reduced local spending. Cafes, gyms, and independent shops struggle as discretionary income disappears. Over time, Streets grow quieter, businesses close earlier, and public spaces lose vibrancy. When affordability collapses at scale, population decline follows naturally, not through sudden flight, but through thousands of individual decisions made under pressure, slowly transforming busy cities into places that feel strangely underused. These changes accumulate yearly, reshaping national settlement patterns, weakening urban resilience, and reinforcing departures as rational responses to persistent economic imbalance across generations and regions nationwide. Number 3. Declining birth rates. Across the UK, birth rates have fallen to historic lows, quietly reshaping the country's future population. Economic uncertainty, unstable housing, and demanding work cultures encourage many adults to delay or avoid having children. Demographic research shows a strong link between financial insecurity and reduced family size. When raising a child feels financially risky, parenthood becomes a postponed dream rather than a natural life stage. This shift results in fewer newborns each year, gradually thinning the base of the population pyramid and setting the stage for long-term population contraction. The effects become visible over time in subtle but powerful ways. Schools merge or close due to falling enrollment. Childcare services struggle to remain viable, and entire neighborhoods lose the sounds of young families. Population studies show that once birth rates drop below replacement level, recovery becomes extremely difficult without large-scale immigration. Fewer children today means fewer workers, consumers, and taxpayers tomorrow. This imbalance places increasing strain on healthcare systems and pensions, while shrinking the number of people sustaining local economies and public services. Cultural factors also play a role. Social research highlights changing attitudes toward marriage, career priorities, and personal freedom. Many adults now prioritize stability, mental health, and autonomy over traditional family timelines. While these choices are rational and deeply personal, their collective impact is profound. As smaller generations replace larger ones, towns age faster. Housing demand shifts, and entire regions slowly empty. Over decades, declining birth rates quietly reshape national identity, economic momentum, and community life, contributing significantly to the possibility of widespread population decline across the UK by 2027. This demographic shift accelerates emptiness, reducing vibrancy, opportunity, renewal, and societal resilience nationwide. Number 4. Remote work redefining population density. Remote work has fundamentally altered how people choose where to live in the UK. Studies following the pandemic show that productivity no longer depends on daily commuting or office presence. When location becomes optional, expensive cities lose their primary advantage. Many workers now question why they should pay high rent for proximity they no longer need. As a result, urban centers experience reduced residential demand, fewer long-term leases, and rising vacancy rates that slowly change the character of entire districts. Research on population movement indicates a steady shift away from dense city living towards smaller towns or overseas locations. Remote employees prioritize space, affordability, and personal well-being over prestige addresses. This migration leaves behind empty office towers, underused transport systems, and struggling service businesses. Cafes near business districts close earlier, public transport runs less frequently, and commercial streets lose foot traffic, reinforcing the cycle of departure and urban decline. Urban planning studies warn that cities designed for daily commuters adapt slowly to this new reality. Infrastructure built for crowds becomes inefficient when populations thin. Over time, unused offices convert poorly, investment slows, and maintenance declines. Younger workers relocate first, followed by families seeking better value, leaving aging populations behind. Without strategic adaptation, remote work accelerates population imbalance, turning once crowded areas into partially occupied spaces. This transformation does not happen suddenly, but through thousands of quiet decisions that collectively reshape the national map and contribute to widespread emptiness by 2027. Local governments often lag behind these shifts, reacting after decline sets in, which deepens vacancy patterns and limits recovery options for communities already losing economic relevance and social cohesion across multiple regions nationwide today without coordinated term planning. Number 5. Housing crisis and unlivable cities. The UK housing crisis has transformed many cities into places that feel increasingly unlivable. Research shows that housing affordability has declined steadily as prices and rents outpace wage growth. Young adults and families are forced into smaller spaces, longer commutes, or unstable living arrangements. When a city cannot provide secure housing, it loses its ability to retain residents. Over time, people leave not because they want to, but because staying no longer supports a sustainable life. Vacancy does not always mean lack of buildings. Studies highlight a growing mismatch between available housing and actual needs. Luxury developments often sit partially empty, while affordable homes remain scarce. This imbalance creates cities that appear full yet feel disconnected. Streets remain busy during work hours, but neighborhoods empty at night. As residents relocate to cheaper regions or other countries, long-term tenancy declines, weakening community ties, and reducing demand for local services that depend on stable populations. Urban sociology research suggests that when housing insecurity becomes normalized, social behavior changes. People delay settling down, avoid investing emotionally in neighborhoods, and plan exits rather than futures. Local schools, clinics, and independent shops struggle as populations fluctuate. Over years, this instability compounds, leaving behind hollowed districts with high turnover and low attachment. Without large-scale reform, housing pressure continues pushing residents outward. This slow outward flow contributes to declining density, quieter cities, and the growing possibility that large parts of the UK feel increasingly empty by 2027 as housing fails to function as the foundation of stable urban life, community resilience, economic continuity, and generational settlement security for future residents nationwide across regions and communities alike today, permanently. Number 6. Climate anxiety and environmental shifts. Climate anxiety is becoming a powerful factor shaping where people choose to live across the UK. Rising concerns about flooding, heat waves, coastal erosion, and aging infrastructure are influencing long-term decisions. Environmental research shows that repeated exposure to climate-related risks increases relocation intent, even before disaster occurs. Areas prone to flooding or extreme weather feel less secure, especially for families and retirees. When safety feels uncertain, emotional attachment weakens, encouraging gradual population movement away from vulnerable regions. Scientific models project that climate impacts will intensify unevenly, creating winners and losers within the same country. Communities facing repeated disruption experience insurance withdrawal, falling property values, and reduced investment. These signals influence perception as much as reality. People respond not only to events, but to expectations. When an area gains a reputation for environmental risk, outward migration accelerates. Over time, this leads to underused housing, declining services, and towns that struggle to attract new residents despite existing infrastructure. Psychological studies link climate anxiety to future planning behavior. Individuals increasingly prioritize resilience, stability, and environmental safety when choosing where to settle. Some move inland, others leave the country entirely for regions perceived as more climate secure. Younger generations, in particular, show higher sensitivity to environmental risk when making life decisions. These shifts rarely appear dramatic year to year, but their cumulative effect is substantial. As climate concern reshapes settlement patterns, entire areas face slow depopulation, contributing to the broader risk of widespread emptiness across the UK by 2027, as environmental uncertainty quietly influences millions of private choices every year. Number 7. Aging population without replacement. The UK is experiencing a rapid rise in its aging population, with fewer young people available to replace them. Demographic research shows life expectancy increasing, while birth rates and youth retention decline. This imbalance reshapes communities as working-age residents shrink and retirement age groups expand. Towns once sustained by active labor markets now rely heavily on pensions and healthcare services. When the age structure tilts too far, economic energy slows, local innovation weakens, and population renewal becomes increasingly difficult over time. An aging population also changes physical settlement patterns. Older residents are less likely to relocate, start businesses, or fill vacant jobs. Studies show that regions with high median ages experience slower economic recovery and reduced inward migration. Younger workers often avoid these areas due to limited opportunities, creating a reinforcing cycle of decline. As services close and transport options reduce, even remaining residents face isolation, accelerating the quiet thinning of entire neighborhoods and towns. Without replacement from younger generations or sustained immigration, population models predict long-term contraction. Schools close while care facilities expand, signaling irreversible demographic shifts. Public funding stretches thinner as fewer workers support more dependents. Over years, this imbalance reshapes cities into quieter spaces dominated by aging residents, with fewer families, fewer births, and less vibrancy. By 2027, this structural aging contributes significantly to widespread emptiness, not through sudden loss, but through the slow absence of renewal that leaves communities intact physically, yet increasingly hollow socially, economically, and culturally across large parts of the UK, affecting productivity, identity, resilience, cohesion, opportunity, optimism, and long-term national sustainability, stability, planning, continuity, and generational balance across regions nationwide overall today, permanently. Number 8. Automation replacing local jobs. Automation and artificial intelligence are rapidly transforming the UK job market, reducing the need for human labor in many local industries. Research shows that roles in retail, manufacturing, transport, and administration are increasingly handled by machines and algorithms. When jobs disappear, people follow. Communities built around specific employers lose their economic anchor, prompting workers to relocate in search of opportunity. This shift does not cause visible collapse, but a steady draining of working-age residents from towns and cities. Studies on labor displacement reveal that automation affects regional economies unevenly. Areas with limited job diversity struggle to absorb displaced workers. Employment options narrow. Younger residents leave first, followed by families seeking stability. Businesses dependent on local spending then suffer, leading to further closures. As employment hubs shrink, fewer people need to live nearby. Housing demand drops, public transport usage declines, and entire districts begin to feel underutilized and quiet. Economic modeling suggests automation-driven depopulation accelerates when retraining systems lag behind technological change. Workers unable to transition into new roles often exit regions entirely. Over time, fewer commuters, fewer shoppers, and fewer workers reshape daily rhythms. Offices stand partially empty, industrial zones fall silent, and service economies contract. This transformation spreads gradually, driven by efficiency rather than intent. By 2027, automation contributes significantly to population thinning, not because people vanish, but because fewer humans are required to sustain economic activity. The result is a landscape where infrastructure remains, yet human presence steadily declines across multiple regions, reinforcing Emptiness as a structural outcome of technological progress, rather than a temporary disruption across communities nationwide today, affecting employment stability, migration patterns, and regional sustainability prospects. Number 9. Decline of small-town economies. Small towns across the UK are experiencing a slow economic fade as traditional local industries disappear. Research shows that closures of factories, high street shops, and public services reduce employment and daily activity. When essential businesses vanish, towns lose purpose and attraction. Younger residents leave for cities or other countries, while remaining populations age in place. Over time, empty storefronts and reduced foot traffic signal deeper structural decline rather than temporary downturns. Economic geography studies explain that small towns depend heavily on a limited number of employers and services. Once these anchors fail, recovery becomes difficult. Online shopping, centralized logistics, and urban-focused investment accelerate this process. As spending leaks outward, local revenue shrinks, forcing councils to cut services. Transport links weaken, healthcare access declines, and education options narrow. Each loss compounds the next, creating a cycle that quietly pushes residents away. Social research highlights the emotional toll of economic erosion. When towns lose gathering places, people lose connection and identity. Community events fade, social networks weaken, and motivation to stay declines. Families relocate for opportunity, students leave for education, and few return. Over years, housing demand falls and properties sit unused. By 2027, the cumulative effect of small-town economic decline contributes significantly to national emptiness, not through collapse, but through absence. Entire regions remain standing yet underpopulated, sustained physically but hollow economically, socially and culturally, reflecting long-term disinvestment patterns that reshape the UK's settlement landscape. This gradual withdrawal reduces resilience, discourages future investment, limits innovation, and normalizes departure as the sensible choice, ensuring that once vibrant towns slowly transition into quiet spaces, rarely considered for long-term settlement or economic revival by younger generations across the country. Number 10. Loss of national optimism. A nation's population is shaped not only by economics, but by how people feel about the future. Across the UK, social research shows a steady decline in collective optimism, particularly among younger generations. When confidence in long-term stability weakens, people become more willing to leave. This emotional shift influences migration as strongly as wages or housing. People move when they believe their ambitions, safety, and growth will be better supported elsewhere, gradually draining population from familiar places. Psychological studies link pessimism about governance, opportunity, and social cohesion to higher immigration intent. When individuals feel disconnected from national direction, they stop planning routes and start planning exits. This mindset reduces community investment, entrepreneurship, and family formation. Neighborhoods lose continuity as residents treat locations as temporary. Over time, this creates environments that feel transitory rather than grounded, where fewer people commit to staying, improving, or rebuilding shared spaces and institutions. Loss of optimism also spreads socially. When friends, colleagues, or relatives leave, departure becomes normalized. Research on social networks shows migration is contagious, accelerating once it reaches a tipping point. Each exit reinforces the belief that the future lies elsewhere. By 2027, this collective outlook contributes to emptiness, not through crisis, but through quiet agreement. A country can remain functional while still feeling abandoned. Buildings stand, systems operate, yet fewer people imagine their future within them. This emotional withdrawal reshapes settlement patterns, leaving behind places that exist physically, but lack the belief, energy, and long-term commitment required to remain fully alive. Without shared belief in progress, recovery slows, participation fades, and population stability weakens across regions, cities, towns, and generations simultaneously over time nationwide. The possibility that large parts of the UK could feel empty by 2027 is not driven by a single event, but by multiple forces acting together. Migration, affordability, demographics, technology, and psychology intersect in ways that quietly reshape where people live and why they stay. Cities, towns, and rural areas are all affected differently, yet the outcome is similar: fewer people committing long-term to place. These shifts happen gradually, making them easy to overlook until absence becomes noticeable. What makes this trend especially powerful is that it is fueled by rational decisions. Each person moves for stability, opportunity, or security. Collectively, those choices transform national settlement patterns. Empty homes, aging communities, and shrinking workforces are not signs of collapse, but of transition. Whether this leads to renewal or deeper decline depends on policy, adaptation, and confidence in the future. Understanding these forces matters because population shapes everything from economies to culture to identity. Awareness is the first step toward response. If this topic changed how you see the future of the UK, support the channel by liking the video, subscribing, and commenting with your perspective. Your insight adds value. Watch the next video to explore how countries rebuild resilience.